Welcome, everybody. So nice to have everybody joining us tonight for the next installment in the Sinai Community Webinar Series. Tonight's topic is inclusion in synagogue and youth groups, and specifically geared towards parents of children with special needs who would like their children to be more included in the shul community, and also to synagogue leaders, lay and professional alike, who would like to think a little bit about how to move the needle in their own communities. Before we get started, I just want to let everybody know that you are welcome, and we encourage you to please to give us some questions in the question and answer button on the bottom of your screen. We will get to as many of them as possible at the conclusion of tonight's presentation. And of course, if for some reason we can't get to that, those questions then, or if you have questions that are more specific or private that you prefer not to put in there, you're always welcome to reach out to us afterwards. Be honored to connect with you. Tonight, I am honored to be working tonight on tonight's program with Divsha and Martin Tolinsky, who are known for many things, but not the least of which is that they are longtime youth directors at Congregation Rinat Yisrael in Teaneck. Divsha and Martin and I know each other for more years than I'd like to admit, and it's so nice to get back together and to bring this wonderful presentation to our community. The purpose of tonight's program is really not to give you specific things that you should be doing as a parent or as a lay leader. There will be some specifics and some details that Martin and Divsha will share with us, but really is meant to inspire a discussion and to help you think about how some of what is covered tonight may be applicable to your own communities. This is not a prescription, do this and everything's going to be great. It's really just meant to inspire a discussion. And like I said earlier, we'd be honored to continue that discussion after tonight. The truth is we are in a place in our communal life that today, more than ever, our community is ready for even more serious discussion about really true inclusion in our shul communities. We live in a community, in a world in general, and specifically in our Jewish community, where we are more inclusive. And thanks to the many programs, in our communities like Friendship Circle and Yachad and the inclusive schools, including Sinai, that are in our community, there is just much more awareness. And I think that there's a much more, our shuls are much more ripe to have these discussions. And in many ways, Divsha and Martin tonight will be talking about how they built things over the years, and the community, all those many years ago, was quite different. And so for those of you who are participating tonight, you're lucky because in many ways, your job in kind of moving that needle will be a little bit easier. So without further ado, Divsha and Martin, thanks for joining us. So let's jump right in. Why don't you share a little bit some of the foundations, some of the basics of how you have become known as, whether you like it or not, the experts in inclusive youth programming.
So what I would say is that we've been youth directors at Rinat Yisrael for about 18 years now. The shadow program existed prior to us starting, about 2 to 3 years. But for the lion's share of the program, we've been running the program, soup to nuts, whether it's introducing new families who are joining the shul, to training leaders, and making sure that we're able to facilitate a successful program. We don't have a child with special needs, but Divsha does have a master in special education. So she was very comfortable jumping right in, and I kind of followed along on her coattails. In our shul, it's the parents who drive the process, right? So whether it's members of our community who recognize that our shadow program is one of the crown jewels of Rinat Yisrael that we're known for, and they take a lot of pride in that. And it's also grandparents too, who see what's going on, who may have a grandparent who has a grandchild who has special needs, who has the ability, if their kids are coming to visit, they call us up on the phone. So it's really all inclusive. And of course, to have a successful program, you need a lot of support from shul leadership to focus that it's a priority of the community and of the shul. And of course, it goes without saying that the driving force of it starting were Terry and Charlie Eisenberg, who started it about 22 years ago.
Yeah.
I want to say, I think it's important to say who the program is named after.
Okay. So it is the Stevie Newman Shadow Program. And Stevie Newman was a young man. He was the first boy to join the program. There was, and really was founded because of him. It was a conversation around the Shabbos table between Terry and Charlie and Stevie's parents, and an urge to want their child to get something more out of community. And it was Charlie and Terry who realized and recognized that, you know what, you can't be a community unless you're including everybody. And that's kind of where it grew.
Yeah. That's true about most good things in our community. They started with strong sparks by individuals who wanted to, to widen that flame. And Baruch Hashem, you guys have been able to build with the support of your community something that is, like we mentioned before, really a gem that others model themselves after. Before we jump into the youth programming specifically, though that's certainly part of it, I think it's important to mention that the youth programming is part of many programs that the shul offers. There are minyanim, there are adult education activities, there are chesed programming, there are shiurim, there are many things. And the youth programming, I know that we've discussed in the past, is really, its success is when it's part of a truly inclusive community, shul community all around. And I was hoping they might share with our friends that are joining us tonight a little bit about what that means to you to have a truly inclusive shul.
I would say, just to start off, that from the beginning, when we started, the shul youth was one of the most important parts of the shul. It was something that was prevalent. All the families felt that was an important piece to building the shul and continuing the growth of the shul. And part of the youth programming from the beginning when we started was the shadow program. It was in its infancy, but it was something that was very important. And I think that everybody understood that we had to be comfortable with all the members of our shul. And from the very beginning, that is something that we've always felt was an integral piece, is being comfortable, making sure that our members are comfortable in the groups area and in the shul area with all types. Welcoming to everybody. If you need something, come into the shul and just tell us what you need. Let's see what we could do. Let's work together with you. Obviously it's much easier when we know in advance. But even if we don't know in advance, we have amazing leaders and amazing parents who everyone wants to work together and be supportive and be helpful. And I think, in terms of the youth groups in general, in our youth groups, we do have, there was many years ago, we did an expansion. So the youth area is secluded, and it's in a different sort of area of our building. And so it does lend itself to allow for more leeway in terms of how we want to create the space. But I would say that the inclusion, to be inclusive, you have to think about all the needs and try your best to create an environment that everyone will feel comfortable. And that's a little bit, I want to speak a little bit about the shul.
Sure, of course. It's not just the youth department. And as we've grown, it's become a focus. So for example, when it was Stevie Newman's bar mitzvah, the shul was packed. And he got up there and he managed to just make the brachot, just to get an aliyah. And that was something which was spectacular. where, it was probably the loudest amen heard in the shul. It was powerful. But that means that it needs to be like inclusive within the minyan as well. It means, and Rinat is known to have be a serious makom tefillah, as many of the shuls in our neighborhood. And but we still need to make sure that the focus is on a quality davening. So whether it's a young boy who comes in with a service dog, or it's a child who's standing with his uncle, whatever it is, you're there. Everyone knows what to expect, and the behavior that's there is always, of a certain quality. But even more than that, it's the physical accessibility, because you can't be inclusive if you can't get around. So one of the things which was very key within the planning of the shul were to have multiple areas to roll wheelchairs into the shul, not just on the men's section, but also on the ladies' side, to make sure that the elevator was such that it would be easy, so that if someone in a wheelchair needs to get down to the kiddush, which is our social hall, is on a lower level, has that accessibility, needs to get to the youth area, there's a secondary stop for the elevator in that youth area. So it's the bima with having a ramp so that somebody on a wheelchair can get up and get an aliyah. All these things were thought of, and part of a grand scheme where, when the shul expanded, they wanted to make sure that this program was only strengthened.
Yeah, you gave so many examples of how Rinat is inclusive in general, and to me, the greatest example you forgot to mention, which is that the wheelchair accessibility in the shul is not just that there's a wheelchair parking lot in the back, that there are spots all around the shul on the men and the women's side where wheelchairs can naturally go in and be, adjacent to the other members of the kihila. And that is a huge statement. It's not just, we're making it so that you can come in because we want you to be here, but we want you to be able to be comfortable sitting here wherever you'd like, in the front, in the back, in the side. And it's to me, that's probably the biggest statement physically of what the shul did, and something to really be proud of. And I'm glad we're talking about this, because as we, dive into talking about what you created, the shadow program, I think it's important for people to appreciate that this is in the context of a shul who's made it a priority to be inclusive as possible, to everybody in the community, not just children, but adults as well. Maybe you could just, share with everybody, we've been teasing them about, the youth programming at Rinat. So maybe give us a little bit of an overview about what you've built.
Okay, so I think over the years, there's been many iterations as children have come and gone. But if you want to picture the scene for a moment, if you come to the youth area this Shabbos, you would walk in and you would see children with shadows sitting in the hallway, singing songs, maybe putting on a show for a child. You'd see a child sitting at the table with his shadow, talking about something that happened this week, school going on. You might walk down one of the halls and you'd see a group of kids playing a game together, or building Legos together with a shadow. And then you'd walk into classrooms and you'd also see children playing, extra leaders maybe in the room. You may not even know who has a shadow and who doesn't have a shadow, but playing with other children, playing Gaga, playing cards. You might see children in our smallest Katantan room, also with a shadow and playing comfortably as well. Much younger children. So you have three categories of children who have shadows. One would be
I wanted to add a fourth.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, when you go into some of the classrooms, you're going to see sometimes a child who participated in the shadow program, who required a shadow, who's now serving as a group leader in whatever level that they're able to do so. That's
right. That is the fourth. But I would say the first category is a child who really can't be pushed in, and has more severe special needs. loves groups, and everyone loves having them around, but it's a one-on-one without any extra people. You'd have a child who it's hard for them to push in, so sometimes they were in the room and sometimes they're out of the room, depending on if it's davening or really just the social environment might be sometimes overwhelming for them, so they pick and choose. And then you have children who just need that extra support, right? They just need somebody who's going to help integrate them into the room. And without that, they're not comfortable coming to groups. And they also, might have social challenges by themselves. They may cause difficulties with other people. So having the shadow really gives them the tools to feel comfortable and also create friendships that they probably would never be able to have. And the last thing that Martin said is really so powerful for us that we were able to start doing is that we bring in children who had shadows and now are leaders. And they feel so good about themselves and they are part of a larger group. And they don't necessarily always come to davening on time, or they don't necessarily come every week. And we understand that. And everybody, I think that's part of the inclusivity. You talk about what we're doing for children and families with special needs, but really also what we're doing is creating this unbelievable environment for everyone, for other families and for all the children, that inclusive feeling of being important and, creating those friendships.
Yeah, I think that last point is a really important point. We used the word inclusion or inclusive in our discussion in the last 15 minutes, probably a dozen times or more. But I don't want that to be lost on people, right? What Divsha and Martin have built are not just, groups for kids with special needs, right? It's groups that accommodate and that include children with special needs in the regular youth program. There's not two different programs. It's all one youth program. And that's something to really be proud of, and I think should be the ideal. Speaking of which, when people are listening to our conversation tonight and wondering to themselves, how do I implement something like what the Tolinskis just described in my shul? That seems, daunting. It seems overwhelming. So what are some of the things, specifically in terms of the shadow program, what are some of the things that they should be thinking about?
I would say the right leaders, the right teens. Doesn't necessarily need to be teens. It could be eighth graders as well. And for us, with those leaders, we set really high expectations. For a regular leader, if you don't show up, okay, so it's a little bit more difficult for your partners. But when you're a shadow group leader, it's much more impactful. It impacts the program. If you don't show up, it impacts the family, it impacts the child. And so what we want is a very high caliber of child. We do a lot of training. We meet with them individually. We meet with them in group sessions where we work on role playing. And we have a mentorship program where we have a dinner in our house on a Friday night where we'll have 30 kids who are either shadows or who want to become shadows and want to be in that program. And we're going to do role play, and we're going to talk about the struggles and what works, what doesn't work, and we're going to talk about each kid. So every kid who's a typical leader is going to be really empowered to succeed. It's not going to be for everybody, but it's going to be something which we put a big effort in.
What really stuck out to me in what you just said is that when you have that dinner in your house, it's not just for the leaders, but for the people who want to become those leaders in the inclusive groups. That makes a huge. How do you accomplish that? How do you make it so that people want to do this? It's hard work.
Right. So I was just going to say that I think over time, being a shadow is something that kids really want. They see the impact that they make. And they also see that it's challenging, but we create an environment. We try our best to create an environment where the leaders don't feel like it's all on them, that they are, if they don't succeed, we're going to think negatively, or people are going to think negatively. Everyone knows that there's, we have a joke in our show. It's like bump it up, right? Everyone knows that in the end of the day, there are so many adults in the shul, and this goes back to being an inclusive shul. Anyone in the shul knows that they want to be helpful to leaders. If a shadow needs help and they're in a random part of the shul, because they took a walk with a kid and suddenly something goes wrong, anyone will help them. And that's, you know, and that's important, an important piece of the picture. And I think over time, you know, shadows, we try our best to create an environment where it's not overwhelming, that we are as supportive as possible, that we will do anything to give them the support to be successful. And in the end, what ends up happening is we have a lot of kids who want to be shadows, and they want to feel that impact. They want to feel that difference.
Yeah.
And it goes back to a little bit what you said in the beginning, where we're in an environment where we have, you know, so many wonderful organizations that that these same leaders are involved with outside of Shabbos, or even on Shabbos after, you know. And I think that it's just part of our community. You know, we've created an environment that is so, you know, gives, and children understand what that means.
Like, for example, like Friendship Circle or HASC, where we have leaders who've grown up through high school working with these kids and then look forward to the opportunity to now go to HASC, to go to camp with those kids.
Right.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, agreed. Maybe share with us a little bit about the profiles of the children that you serve in your inclusive groups. Is it all inclusive? Are there limits?
So I would say, to start off, we always say that we can work with anyone. If you want to, if you want to send your child to groups, we want them. We want to make it work for you. That's like, to start off, that's our mantra. And we'll do, and if the child wants to be there, and if the parent wants them to be there, we want them to be there. And we do a lot of things in order to try to make it be as successful as possible. We will do home visits, you know, outside of Shabbos, on Shabbos sometimes. We have multiple leaders coming in the beginning to sort of get used to the child, make sure the parents are comfortable, you know, with the leaders, with us. The new shadows will be trained with older shadows at the same time on a Shabbos. You know, we'll sort of hover over them as much as we can to make sure that that we're doing everything we can to make it successful, because we know that the purpose of groups is for people to be able to go to shul. And so we want the kids to feel good about themselves. We want the parents to feel, you know, that this was a success. And specifically for this program, a lot of times this is the one opportunity for parents to feel like they can socialize with other people. They can drop their child off and go daven. You know, so many times people will drop their child off and say, you know, in a very, very meaningful, powerful experience for us, you know, this is our first time that I've been in shul since my child was born, you know, or, you know, and it's a beautiful thing for us to be able to witness it, and the kids have a great time. So it's a win-win for everyone, you know. But I would say, so back to your question, who do we have? We have children with more severe special needs. We have you know, that are in, you know, special programs. We have children who may not even have a diagnosis. But so it spans from one extreme to an extreme where they don't have a diagnosis, or we don't know about it, but it's hard for them to be in groups, and they can't, or it's hard for them to daven, or it's hard for them to stay focused, or, you know, we see that this is just something that's not working. And so sometimes, you know, we just put in an extra leader into that room, and Martin and I know what we're doing, or we say to different leaders, like, you're going to focus on these kids today, you know. And so it's not a real shadow, but it's something that we're doing to create an environment where it's going to be a success for that child. And, you know, our group leaders now have become comfortable saying to us quietly, you know, I think that this child is having a hard time because is having trouble davening. Maybe we could do something for her separately. So it's children who don't have real challenges, but something is bothering them. And so we do that, and they feel so good, and we feel great that it's working, you know. So it really has so many variations, you know, on a given year, and, you know, and on a given Shabbos.
When people who are listening tonight and thinking about, you know, what they could do to start building something in their shul that could be successful, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was going out of your way to make those connections outside of the youth group's time, whether it's another time on Shabbos, doing a home visit during the week, like really above and beyond what I think anybody, you know, listening would expect to do. And it is both inspiring that you guys take the time to do that, and that you are serious about that commitment and that success. But to give people a little bit of a picture of kind of what that looks like, people are probably listening saying, "Oh, we should do that. That's a really great idea." But what does that visit look like? What can they could expect? How long are they? Are there multiple visits? What kinds of things do you try to accomplish in those visits to set things up for success?
So it's sometimes outside of it depends on the family. So there are certain kids that have had home visits. There are kids who we've done just in shul. They come for short periods of time and we play with them. It's really just playing. It's really just the interaction between the leader and the child, and sometimes the parents observing it also, for everyone just to be comfortable. We want the leaders to feel comfortable with the children, and we want the children to be comfortable with the leader. And we want the parents to be like, okay, I can drop my child off and I'm going to be comfortable with this. Yeah. So depending on the children and depending on the situation, we a lot of times talk to the parents and ask them what they want. What will make it comfortable for you? How does this work for you? We have a child right now who's starting the program, and they bring their daughter. The first day we had 3 leaders with her. And now she, from the beginning, they said, we're going to do it for like an hour and a half at a time. Great. And so, this will be the 3rd week, and it's amazing. And hopefully over time, and it has to do with the child's nap. But I think, as they become comfortable, maybe the nap schedule will change or whatever it is. But it's really about everybody's comfort level and making sure that we're working together with the family to be successful.
Great. Maybe share with us a little bit about what the training looks like for your group leaders. You mentioned before there are multiple trainings in groups and individually. What are the kind of things that you try to accomplish during those trainings?
So the most important thing that we try to impact on every single one of our trainings is that Divsha and I are not the exclusive point people for the program. I want an 8th grader to be able to look up to a senior in high school, a junior, a sophomore, and look at them as role models and as friends. And that means that when they're trained, when my middle school kids are training, sometimes Divsha and I are just taking a step back and observing and allowing those juniors and sophomores who the kids work with when they're in high school, getting to develop those relationships, because the more comfortable you are as a team, the more successful everyone will be, because I don't want anyone ever to feel like they're on an island. And we have a large program. So it's certainly possible that at any one point, Divsha and I may be somewhere else and not be able to help. So having this army of kids who are able to help is very important. So that's the first point.
I want to say something, because I think anybody who's watching this, if they're thinking about running this program, then they're thinking about the beginning stages. And in the beginning stages, our training looked a little different. And I think the beginning stages of the trainings were important. So I'm just going to cut. Martin's describing what we're doing now, which is we has evolved and it works really well. But I think in the beginning, we had speakers come and we had people share, speakers who are experts in the special needs fields and who could talk about just big ideas that maybe new leaders might have difficulty with. Or some big ideas that were maybe on kids' minds, right? And as much as I think that the group leaders learn more now from each other and from experiences they've had and from being role models. And I always think that when you have a role model who you look up to and is one of your peers, you're going to get so much more out of it than a speaker, unfortunately or fortunately. That's the reality when you're a teenager. But I think it was important in the beginning years to have, speakers come and share to the big picture. I think it was important for Martin and I as well,
Stephen Glickman's 4Fs, friendly, firm, fair, and fun. So I still remember it. This was a training from a very, very long time ago, but it provides guidance and it pushes forward.
They were important pieces to building the training. And I think that would be an important start to bring others in to help the leaders and to help the directors, guide us to run a good program that works for us. So Martin's going to continue on if you wanted to.
So going into, so now, like, once we're in that training, we want those older kids to talk about what's the most difficult thing they've had to deal with. What are some of the solutions that they came up with those problems? It's important that the younger kids see that, hey, they're older kids, they're bigger kids, but they also have challenges, but they've been through it before and they figured out a way. So what those older children are doing and what we also do as we add in, are giving those younger kids the tools to succeed. They have to have the right maturity in order to do it. They have to have the right amount of focus. They have to be at a certain level of seriousness.
And then at the end, we ask everybody to sort of share something that they took away from it. So I think that's important also, that they're sharing, what others, something, and takeaway, right? And so they share it with the whole group. And so I think people learn from that too, because when you hear your friends sharing something they learned, even if it wasn't meaningful to you then, it might be meaningful to you now. So it's pretty powerful. And we do a round robin. So what we do is we have the leaders from each of the specific shadow children in different areas, and they each take turns. So everybody gets an opportunity, because in the beginning, you don't really know who you're going to be shadowing, and you may not know what you're interested in, who you might be interested in shadowing. So if you listen to the different experiences that people have, you then can share with us who you might be more interested in shadowing, or who may not want to shadow at all. That's an important piece too. Some people are not going to be as comfortable with certain children as they are with others. And we want it to be successful. So we always work with our leaders to hear what what they would prefer, and support them.
Right. For those of you who don't know, and now it'll make sense, Divsha professionally is the director of early childhood at Mariah. So she's coming to this with like tons of flexibility and sensitivity. She, I guess, every day of the week is using those skills.
Try.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of the big picture, and zooming back out now a little bit, and now reflecting on what you have built and the impact that has had on the shul, on the kids, on the community as a whole. When we're trying, if there are people who are participating tonight who are in a position of pushing this forward, and they have to convince the leadership of the shul that no, this should be a priority, because all of these things will happen. What are some of those things? What are some of those benefits?
I said it before, but I'm going to say it again. I think the feeling that you create in a shul, where everyone is welcome and everyone is accepted, and from 2-year-olds in the shul and seeing children with all different needs, to adults in the shul seeing children and adults with different needs, and everyone being comfortable. We had many, many years where there was a child who came, Martin mentioned before, he came with his dog. And the dog literally sat, this very large golden lab, sat on the floor in the youth area. And in the beginning, I remember kids would be so scared when they came down, and they'd be crying. And it took, a good few weeks. And before you knew it, they would come be kissing the nose, and this was the most loving, wonderful dog, and wouldn't touch her to fly. And it just became something that it was just accepted. People come down the stairs and they see all different kinds of special, children that have, severe needs, and nobody blinks an eye, and everyone just is so happy to see them. And it's a beautiful scene. And I think that we create the shul has allowing this to run the way it runs in our shul, has created an environment for really inclusivity across in every way.
I think it just, looking at it, like maybe zooming in a little, it's beneficial to the typical kids in groups, because it becomes something which they become regulated to, that they see that's a normal part of life, that not every kid is the same, not everyone's a cookie cut, and we need to have that flexibility. And they see some of the most wonderful friendships, playing games together, looking forward, and it's something which is really beautiful. Look, another thing, if you're going to start a program like this, is it attracts members. People find out that there's a program like this, people want to come and join your shul. Maybe they have a child with special needs, maybe not, but it's something where you see an important focus on the community and inclusivity, and it's something which can be very attractive to the shul.
Yeah,
You
it's
wanna say something?
no, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you wanted to say something. I
Oh,
didn't want to.
yeah, I mean, it's also, the way you were describing, I keep going back to that Shabbos table in your house and how people want to be there. It gives opportunities for those leaders to enjoy, we'll call it a prestigious position, with responsibility, with learning what it means to, collaborate with others, to be more sensitive, all of those things. Talk about the benefits. It's one thing to be, in a school or in a shul where there are children or adults with special needs, and that in itself is inclusive. But when the children, the group leaders specifically, are in that position, it's a deeper level of growth that the shul is affording them.
It's funny you say that because we have many children who then go on to other leadership roles, whatever it is, whether they're a counselor in camp or they're, a counselor in HASC, and many times they come back or their parents come back and they talk about how this was such a formative experience for them. It really created an environment for them to be a role model, to be a leader. But really it came from them. They were exposed to it. They saw it and then they wanted to do it. And to give children, the shul has given these children opportunities to be leaders in our community.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's very nice of you to deflect and say it's them and they wanted it. It is true, they wanted it, but they wouldn't have wanted it if the position wasn't there and it wasn't sought after, and as such a chashuv kind of status in the shul. So it's a teamwork, I guess. But yeah. You guys are too humble, so I won't push it. Undoubtedly, when we're thinking about building this kind of program in a shul, there are challenges. Thus far in our conversation, we've been talking about how wonderful it is and benefits, and everybody's one big happy family, and it allows the parents to have a little bit of respite and to feel like they're normal, all of those wonderful things. But I'm sure that there were and are, challenges in building what you've been able, with Hashem's help, to build. So really, as certainly not to complain, and I'm sure you guys wouldn't complain, but really with the purpose of, trying to give our, the participants tonight kind of things to think about, things to be warned about, things to preempt. What could some of those challenges be?
So I think one of the big challenges, if you're going to start a program, if it's an established youth program already, that youth director has to have buy-in that they want to take on this added responsibility. And the first instinct from them may be, well, I only have a certain number of leaders to run my program. I don't maybe have enough to spare. And so it circles back to when I was talking to Charlie about how it started, where they didn't initially go and look at the current pool of group leaders, but they went to find two boys who were mature, who they felt were ready to do it. And they started it that way and brought it in. But that's certainly going to be a challenge, because there are times when I see some of my best group leaders say, well, we don't want to be in the room anymore. We want to work with boy A or, girl B. And then that can have an impact on the program, but then that's on us to do a better job training and making sure to push everybody up within the team to be supportive of one another.
Another challenge could be just the shul. Everyone in here, obviously, that's watching understands that it does take more for a leader to be a shadow, and the shadows do get paid more money. And that is something that will cost more for the shul. And so it's something in the budget, on a budget line, in the youth budget line, it will go up once you have shadows. Not a large, depending on how much money you pay. It's not a large amount, but it's a number, and it's something that has to be understood factor in starting this program.
So that means you need buy-in from the board. You need buy-in from the rabbi. If the rabbi is supportive of this program and he's pushing for it, I remember Jakey's bar mitzvah, where Rabbi Adler gets up there and says, "This is a moment," and everybody's together, and you have somebody who's pushing forward. That rabbinical leader is super important, because if he's servicing the entire community, he's going to want to do that, and that sometimes may be a conversation for a clique, but that's going to be one of the challenges, to make sure you have buy-in from that leadership.
I think the most important part of starting this is that you need the buy-in. You need the buy-in from the shul. You need the buy-in from the members. People want to, and then obviously the most important is the youth directors, talking to them and making sure that they feel comfortable helping, creating this, program.
Yeah, and something that we've spoken about in the past, which is probably one of the most important points here, is the fact that you guys have been doing this for 20 years. And it's not this revolving door of every 2 or 3 years, new youth directors there. And there's real value to that.
Right.
It doesn't happen as often as it should in our shuls. But our community our extended community is grateful that you guys have continued to do that.
Right. No, it's definitely, it helps build something when you have past experiences, you have people that feel comfortable with the program, and you have looking ahead, which kids, the kids feel comfortable coming and asking questions and not being worried about their role, and they trust you. And also, like I said before, when we have some of the children who had shadows come back to be leaders, they feel comfortable because they know us and they have experience with us. So
yeah, I guess to conclude, there may be people sitting in tonight's presentation who are thinking like, this is great, it's inspiring, but my shul is not ready for it, or I'm not ready to push it forward, and this is just way more than I could do. Still, there must be things that they could do that you might suggest that they can take kind of small bites to slowly, impact change in the community, so that even if they don't have a full inclusive youth program now, it set the stage so that in 5 years or whatever time, they'll be able to do that.
I would say, I think to come to shul, to reach out to the youth directors and to come to shul, to ask them if there's somebody in the youth groups, a shadow or a group leader that can, work with them for half an hour, or come to their house beforehand, play with them. Maybe just start that way. Don't even do it in the shul. Do it outside of shul, like what I described before as to how we bring them in. Maybe don't even start bringing them in. Maybe have leaders go to their house on Shabbos and play with them in the house. And then slowly, as you build a group of leaders who will be comfortable with that, then have them walk to shul. We didn't talk about this, but we do have our shadow children many times are picked up at home and brought to shul by the leaders. The parents don't necessarily always bring them. It's something that we've done over time because we realize that sometimes parents, it's hard for them to come to shul right away. They can't come with their child. So they come later after their child's out of the house, they get ready and then they go to shul. And on a rainy day, sometimes they just go to the house and stay with them the whole day and don't come to shul at all because it's hard to push a stroller, a huge wheelchair in the rain or in the snow. So, but these are all things that have evolved over time. But I think that to start a program, do it in the house.
But circling back also to what I mentioned with my conversation with Charlie this week, which was they found 2 people from the outside. So you don't necessarily have to go to the youth director and say, hey, provide me a shadow. You can also go in and say, I have, this is what happened. This has to be within the framework of working with perhaps the youth leadership of the shul. In Rena, we have a youth committee. Charlie happened to have been the chairman of that youth committee at the time. So this family worked together with Charlie, and they found someone else who wasn't involved, and then came in and brought this leader in there. So,
but you could also just use your your leaders, whatever works. However, whatever you can find. I think start small, but if you start small and you do it week by week, you're going to get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I feel like we could be, sitting here for, another hour, and we still wouldn't have enough time, but to be sensitive to people's time, I'd like to kind of switch gears a little bit and address some of the questions that have been posed to us tonight, and there have been a number of them. So thank you, everybody, for giving us questions and things to think about and helping us all. The first question is, I was wondering if there are any tips to help those who are deaf or hard of hearing to help them in shul. Since we can't use technology in Shabbos, sometimes this can be a barrier. Not sure if you've had any.
We have. Yeah,
okay.
we have had, but it was in groups. It wasn't in shul. We have sign language. We actually have had iPads. The kids, whatever they're using outside of shul in order to be successful in the world, many times, I mean, the children that we've had iPads. They brought them to shul, and they pressed. They were able to communicate with us using the iPads, and that was, the rabbis were very comfortable with that. We were comfortable with that, and that was their way of communicating. So we've had children that were deaf, hard of hearing, autistic, many children who could not speak and had difficulty communicating.
We had a girl who came in and we needed to have group leaders who knew sign language, and we had a couple girls who were so excited, and they came and they knew sign language, and the parents came with a binder with the signs, and they had come from Switzerland, and so the signing was different, and all these girls had to now learn how to sign in a different language in order to communicate with the girls.
But we figured it out.
You figured these things out.
It was okay.
It was implicit, but I just want to ask specifically, did you offer that kind of training for sign language no. Okay.
No,
but they just, some of the leaders might.
Yeah, they were excited about, the hand motion sign language.
Yeah. So they learned it.
Yeah, and so they thought they could use it, but they couldn't.
Amazing. It's great. Another question is, we started in inclusion groups. Amazing. Good for you. And some of the parents of the children with fairly disruptive behavioral problems don't want their kids to have a shadow. They want their kids to be in groups, but they don't want to participate in this inclusion program. It's disruptive and hard for the group leaders. How would you handle this? Great question.
I can tell you, we have that a lot.
I'm sure.
Have that a lot. Maybe it's overstating a lot, but when it does happen, it feels like it's happening a lot. What we do is sometimes we're going to take that situation under our own control, meaning,
I mentioned it before. We don't put in extra leaders in the room
and say, okay, you're not a shadow for any purpose except for the fact that you're a personal leader, right? Or you put a different name to it or something like that.
Right. And you know what? I or Marta will go over to the parents after groups if it was really hard, and I say, it was a hard day. We had a hard day with them. What do you do at home? What do you do in school? Can you help us? Give us guidance. We want this to be a positive experience. And parents are very receptive. And they, we work together. And parents, once a parent feels like you want their child to be successful, you want this to work for their child, they open up to you. And it's never only in groups that a child is having a hard time, right? And so if you show the parent that they can trust you and that this is going to be good, then you become partners with them. And then, you know what? They do end up having shadows, and they do end up working with you. And whatever they're doing in school, they sometimes will continue doing it on the weekends for groups. So it's about a partnership.
Like everything else in life, it's about the relationships, right? So you have a trusting relationship with the parents, so that helps. And sometimes it takes time to develop, but
correct.
But absolutely. And we'll say one more question here is, what do we do if there is a parent who's keeping a child at home because they don't know how the child will behave? I could bet what your answer is going to be, but you didn't say it specifically.
you know, we try to, if we know that a child is at home, we do talk a lot to the parents and try to help them, convince them to bring them to shul, and tell them we're going to make this work. We've done that before, and they do end up coming. They're scared. You know, they're scared what it's going to look like. And so we'll go to their house, or we tell them to come for an hour, or, you know, back to sort of what we've been saying for a long time. People need to feel comfortable, and we need to find a way. Just say to them, what can we do to make this comfortable for you? You tell me, you know, do you want to come for 10 minutes? Do you want them to come to your house for 5 Shabbases in a row? Whatever you need to be comfortable, you know, we'll make it work. And over time, and this is again almost 20 years, but over time, parents see and hear about the fact that we're not a scary place, we're a safe place. And so it has become much easier to bring people in than it was in the beginning. I think that's a really important piece also, you know?
Yes. You know, as we wrap up, I bet that there are people here who are thinking, can Divsha and Martin guide me or my shul?
Yes.
Like, can I reach out to them? So I knew you would say yes, but I want people to feel comfortable doing that. You know,
Yes.
you have been in that position to guide other shuls into thinking about this. So people, please, you know, out there, if you are looking for Divsha and Martin's contact information, feel free to reach out to us at Sinai. Answer one of the emails that you've already received from us, and I will certainly get you in contact. Divsha, Martin, thank you so much for the time and for your expertise and your sensitivity that you brought to this conversation and that you bring to our community. The Renat community is lucky to have you, and I would say the broader Bergen County and the Jewish community as a whole. So I'm really lucky to have you as a resource. And so thank you for pushing things forward.
You know, I just want to say the Renat community has been unbelievably really a team. And I think that that's the most important for a shul, is to create that team and that partnership in order to be a successful program.
Yes. Thank you so much. Everybody here should please stay tuned for future webinars in our series. You'll be receiving the emails and seeing them publicized in other ways. You will receive a follow-up email tonight asking you for your feedback. We'd really appreciate it if you would send us feedback and give us honest feedback. We can take it, but we really want to be able to make sure that what we're offering the community is helpful. And so your feedback is important in trying to achieve that. And lastly, the recording of tonight's webinar will be on our website, hopefully by the end of the week. And we encourage you to please share it with others who were not able to join us tonight. And I'm looking forward to having you participate in some of our future webinars soon. So thank you for joining us, and have a great evening. Thank you, Divsha and Martin.
Good night.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, bye.